19 panels, all ready to be stained, pre-assembled, and then put together into a cathedral. This ought to be fun. The pre-assembly, these are all the small benches and loot crates. Now, starting out, you've got the interior walls and the base for the first floor. Start with the left-right wall in the front. And then you put in the two archways. And then the two front walls. The one on the left, the doorway goes towards the front. And then I went ahead and added the stained glass to the interior trim. Just a little dab of glue on the three corners, two at the bottom, one at the top. And I glued it so that the shiny side would be up. That way it'll be facing out when you put it together. Not the steadiest hands anymore, but just the job's done. Went ahead and did all of them. Then the outside walls. Then I did the trim. I started with the archways on both sides. And then the trim on the two small rooms in the front. These are the exterior inside trim. Make sure when you're doing these the trim does not extend up past the top of the walls. Everything needs to be below or at least flush. And then the inside exterior wall trim. I use a lot of glue on everything for this one. You don't have to. I do it because this is going to be my display piece and it's going to get moved around, assembled, disassembled a bunch. So I use way too much glue on it for that reason. Then here I'm building the inside staircase. Put the doorway wall on first, and then I've assembled the steps going up onto that panel there. Now if the panel is a little tight, just take some sandpaper, sand down the edges. I cut this to a tight tolerance, and if a dab of glue or something isn't letting the previous panel sit flush, you may have to sand this one to fit to compensate for that. You can put this panel in ahead of time and then add the runners, but my hands are a little bit too big to fit down in there to do that. Found that out the hard way. So if you put the steps on before you put it in, it makes life so much easier. Then again, you want to dry fit everything before gluing it together. You'll see why. Right on this next piece. Sanding the little nubs off for the tabs that held it into the tree. See that right there? That's actually how it goes on. That's why you dry fit it beforehand. And once everything is set up, slide that one into place. Now on the front door, the tabs on each door needs to be rounded off. Just knock the edges off the tabs. You're putting a square peg in a round hole, so you need to make that peg a little bit round. You don't want to take it too far down because that does give you a little bit of friction on your hinge mount, and it makes the door more realistic and opening and closing. But if you glue in the bottom mounts first, place your door into the hole, and then add the top mount, you got it. It's that simple. Now here I'm placing my benches where I want them. You may want them someplace different. I think they look good this way, but you might want something totally different. And then now putting the top seal on. Okay. You couldn't see it, but after the top seal on the first story, I added the floor for the second story onto that one, so that if it's not exactly flat, the second story is still going to mate up with it. Adding the outside trim to the windows. And adding the stained glass to the second story inside trim. You put the 2 long rails in first, and then you start putting the exterior wall trim on. Finishing up the outside trim, adding the benches on the upper part. And there you have the upper floor. Adding the outside window trim on it. The way I like doing these is locating the 2 tabs at the bottom, laying it over the window and lining it up with the engraved pieces around the window, and then just sticking it into place. Now we're ready to start with the final section, the roof. Making sure everything fits properly. When I'm putting the benches in, I like to run the legs over the sandpaper to kind of flatten them out. Okay, start with the back wall. Don't put any glue on the tabs, especially if you've got your mounting plate sitting on top of your second story. And then your 3 trusses. And once you get all 3 of the trusses on, that ridge beam, you put it on, and one side is rounded, that hangs off the rear of the building, and the other side has a square front that goes towards the steeple. trim. You got that one side that's rounded and the other side that's square, or that's the rounded side. And that is your supports for your roof panels. They glue to each side of the trusses. You got 3 trusses. You're going to have 12 of those. I use just a straight edge. I would recommend, I did this wrong, putting it together, and I found out later that it would be easier if you started with the center steeple and build it in place. Then put your 2 front gables in on each side of the steeple, and then built the 2 small steeples on each side. It would go a lot easier. I mean, just because I designed it don't mean I know how it goes together. Okay. And then you add the roof panels onto the onto the small steeples. Your trim panel on the front main steeple. You got your roof panels on. The other side, it goes on the same way. And for that center right there, I do recommend using a lot of glue for that. And that's it. You've built your cathedral. And there you have your cathedral. It's sectional, so the roof, the first and second story lifts off. 1-inch grid in the floors. Comes with all the accessories. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I did making this. Thank you very much.